Hi, Alex. With me today is Alex Archawski, one of the two co-owners of Sales Evolution, based in the Philadelphia region. Alex is with me on episode number 3 of Marin Street Capital's Beyond the Inflection Point podcast. Alex, how are you doing today?
Good. Good, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for volunteering to be our third victim here.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
So, Alex, you and I have known each other for almost 3 years now. I think
Yeah.
July. Yeah, this is actually almost exactly our 3-year anniversary. I think July 22 of 22 was our first BCA event, and you and I met each other through that great local organization. Alex, I mean, we've got to know each other relatively well. Probably still have some other rocks to turn over with each other. Um, but I feel like I know you better than probably most of the other 83, 84 other business owners within the BCA group. And I think you've got a really interesting story as to how you wound up running this company. Why don't we start with a little bit of background about the company itself, Sales Evolution, what it does, the types of customers it helps, and then we can back into how you got into that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the organization itself was founded by a mentor of mine. And so when I got out of the service, second time I got out of the military, you kind of know you're going to be in a certain direction. I sold Cutco knives in high school. So by de facto, I knew I was getting into sales, right? And so when I did, I really was, in the military, it's a learning organization. So you're always learning. So I gravitated saying, and it was recommended, and I learned it and how challenging the approach was. And I said, that's great. I loved the empowerment, the process, make me feel better to do the activities I did not want to do, right? That I needed to do. So put that in my toolbox, and I did a couple others, and then just went on professionally in there. So the company in itself was really about allowing individuals to be a better version of themselves. So it's really not just entry level kind of curriculum and training, but the coaching is where the connection is you connect really well with individuals and how they perform. So we're really in the performance business about seeing how people walk the last 3 miles of the marathon. And sales can be the same way. You can start out great and finish really gassed. So it's really understanding where people's self-limited beliefs are, some of the head trash, some of the anchors that people never address, and they just do that in life. It's like playing your golf game without addressing it. If that makes sense. You're like, I think I
No,
play
it
good golf.
makes a lot of sense. I had to give up golf in my early 20s. I guess I gave it up, it was probably, I don't know, 23, 24, because I wasn't enjoying it. And the reason I wasn't enjoying it was I was doing it wrong. I was trying to play competitively without having spent all the time I needed to spend to build up to a level of expertise where I could be consistently competitive.
That's right. And so you're hitting a nail on the head right now is who in life plays the long game and who plays the short game. And I'm not talking about golf.
Yeah.
I'm talking about understanding the commitment to be better. It takes a certain DNA. And, it's understanding the journey, really understanding to execute things to evolve as a professional. So we do both sales leadership as in general, just for executives that want to get promoted and move up in the chain of command. And the process is really teaching people how to be good students. We have a lot of, I need help, but I know what I'm doing. So we're like, well, we can welcome you too. There's a lot of egos in good spaces, and we meet them where they are, and that's why good onboarding was really missed. So I saw the industry really where to capture that is really defining how people can participate well in programs, and I saw the industry really, really not doing it well. which is they're just showing up to do things and not locking the students in properly to execute well. And that's where we do.
So it sounds like sales evolution is basically offering its customers a performance and leadership enhancement process kind of wrapped in this sales training product.
It is. And in many ways, you can meet people at the entry level, or you can meet people that are highly skilled. But when they're highly skilled, it means efficiency. Efficiency is 10% better in negotiating, 25% better in referrals, 5% better in negotiating, 20% better in prospecting. So what happens is people don't evaluate their performance. They're just doing activities. I view life as such as that anybody could look for a job in a week and be busy. That doesn't mean it's the right activities.
Yeah, I think most people, and myself included, would view themselves as horrible job seekers. Most people feel like that's the worst activity in life.
But those that get the job the quickest are usually doing high value activities.
Mm.
They're meeting people, they're networking, they're building relationships to get introduced to the job. The ones that apply to the job are doing the activities they believe they need to do, which takes forever. So sales is the same way of high value activities, which means maybe I should do it, maybe I shouldn't, and how to unlock the self-limit beliefs and bad beliefs. And the way we look at it is philosophically, anybody could be in the gym burning calories for an hour, but that's normal Americans. They go to the gym, but only a certain percentage have a plan. And
Right.
so the hard part is going to the gym. So check the box, you did it. The second hardest part is, do you know what will get you to really be healthy?
Yeah,
So
right. I mean, you can go to the gym, you can spend 2 hours a day in the gym, but then if you go home and slug poor quality food, it's going to undo everything you did.
it is, but at the same time, the gym activities is if you look at people that have minutes, sets, reps, apps, binder, if they know the exact plan, their output is so much more. The ones that go, you know what, I'm just going to jump on this for 20 minutes. That's how we see sales activities in businesses. So, but even successful companies, it's just that they really don't understand. They're just it's stuck in a rut of growth.
Okay.
Some of them.
So, what types of companies, what's your ideal customer profile?
Great question. It's strictly on leadership. It's strictly on leaders that are always process improving. So you and I quickly talked about before about we're not interested in the person talking about what they want to do with the business. We're interested in how they do things in life. So if they're looking to say, hey, I'm trying to get more of my lawn manicured, or I need to get these weeds out, or I need to, I'm trying to work something in the house, so they're trying to go to the gym about it. They talk these things about how they want to improve in those areas, how they've been trying to fish in this spot and they need to go back to get that fish. Their intent really comes out. And those are the characters of intent that matches who we can work with. So agnostic, unfortunately, because those companies are always looking to be better version of themselves.
All
And
right. So,
go ahead.
how ingrained does that need to be? I mean, a CEO can be very Kaizen oriented, right? Process improvement oriented. And if such a CEO comes to you and says, hey, my sales department is not pulling their weight, can you help them? Does the sales leader also have to be Kaizen oriented? Or, how can that work? Because
Great
we
question.
see lots of competing dynamics all the time.
Great question. So, it depends. There's CEOs and there's sales leaders and there's teams, right? There's a lot of quasi, but I'll give you kind of different types of people in life because the majority of our economy is driven by non-sales professionals. It's manufacturing, industrial, law firms, and there's no salespeople. So if you think about it, I'll talk about that. They're non-sales professionals. We'll talk about that in a second, but they need to grow the business too.
Mhm.
But in the sense of the regular sales and sales teams, which are half of our business, the other half is non-sales professionals. it means that, typically everybody thinks they have a computer problem, but we're telling them they have a server problem. So basically, we gracefully ask them their style and how they do things. So sales leadership, triangular success, leader, us, students. And if it's not aligned, we can't take the business. So if they have problems, we got to go to understand what that means. Sometimes it's market, sometimes it's lead flow, sometimes it's poor execution. Maybe they don't even have a playbook. And that's a whole different area that we do about fractional sales leadership of putting processes in place. So we got to be careful of how we receive it. We always say the best salespeople are doctors. They don't prescribe before diagnosing. So basically, our job is to what brings you here. Is it you or is it your wife? So basically, we need to understand the intent.
Alex, can anybody learn how to sell?
To be honest with you, I think the answer could be yes, but
Mhm.
there are some people that are heavy, heavy. Um, they don't want change in their life. They're
Ah,
in the
so,
disc
okay.
profile, they're S's in disc profile, which means they're steady eddies.
Hmm.
And it drives employers nuts, but they need them for work because they love the mundane of the job or the routine of the same thing. It could be whatever it is, but that's not the right person. So everybody else, people that are in compliance, they can follow a checklist of activities. Um, so they're able to do things. I would say there many people are not blessed to hunt for new business,
Hmm.
but a lot of people are blessed and could do really well growing businesses, account
Hmm.
management, growth in the areas, relationship building with what's existing.
Makes sense. Okay. Let's back up. So you talked about performance improvement, leadership. Um, you mentioned the phrase chain of command. Alex, we've seen a number of venture funded businesses led by folks with military backgrounds. I know uh, you kind of stand out amongst the community of military veterans. You yourself were in the Navy. Um, Talk about your military background and how that impacted your career and now what you're doing with sales evolution.
Well, I use a phrase that says it's the best time I'll never do again. So when people are like, what does that mean? I'm like, well, it was needed for me at that time. But it's a lot of mundane things back there, but it makes you appreciate the smaller things in life, right? A hot shower and all that. But what I've learned is how you work as a team for a mission is really powerful. And the diverse of the background from somebody from New York City to Oklahoma to Iowa to Florida, you've learned the dynamics of people from small towns to big towns and how to get along. So the strength is in leadership, you really have to get along with so many different people, not to be friends, but people to be able to communicate with to achieve mission. That was the biggest thing that the military did is how are you going to communicate with all these people and you can't fire them. You can't fire them. You have who you have, right? So in the civilian world, you're like, wow, this is so much more easy, right? Like, and direction and pointing. So you take a lot of it and you don't realize how much it's helped you. But there are nuances that are plus and minuses, right? In relationship about perfectionists and stuff like that. It teaches you never to be satisfied. Now, I'll use the example, I don't know if I ever shared with you, is the best Top Gun pilot could land in an aircraft carrier. And they're like, look, I landed on the carrier. Well, how many people can do that? I was like, nobody. You're the best, right? In my eyes. And then they have to go to a meeting to show them how they can do it better. And when you stick to a program of a culture that's the culture, then you get out thinking I did a great job, but can I be 2% better? So that's why I was talking about 5% better here, 2% better here. It's you're always searching for better, but you're satisfied, but the culture is there in one of the oldest organizations in the country, for the military, they need to make sure that everybody's looking out to be better because if
Yep.
not, it's dangerous. It could be a dangerous job. So kudos to them, but they do good accountability. And I think in the environment that we're in, believe it or not, I believe our youth, we can never blame. It's the leaders that
Mm.
are to blame that understand that they will respond well to accountability. We believe they won't, but they're looking for leaders and mentors, just like the military. If they can do 20-year-olds in the military, you can do 20-year-olds here in the civilian world. So we believe we can't push buttons. We believe we have to be protected of the words we say, but it doesn't mean we have to be hard on them. We just got to give them mission and purpose and drive to follow that. And that's
Well,
really where
Alex, that's a super interesting point because I have interacted with a number of companies where the C-suite and or middle management is saying, hey, we need to do A, B, and C. But then the C-suite and middle management is not doing ABC, and they want the folks, the execution layer of their workforce to do A, B, and C. And the execution layer of today's workforce tends to be these younger folks you're talking about, and they're not blind. They say, oh, my managers and company execs are not showing up into the office. Do I really need to be here Monday through Friday? My managers and my company execs, I don't see putting in, extra hours, weekend time. So am I going to do that?
it's a good point. Everybody's got different ways, and I think post-pandemic we're just kind of still hardwiring ourselves, but we've seen a lack. That's why the demand for leadership training has been high because they don't even realize it until we meet with them. They're like, oh, maybe it's me. And they realize I said, your performance that you get from your team is based on how you lead them. If you need to improve 20% your leadership style, then you'll see the results, right? And so it's a mixed art. It's a mixed art because you got to communicate well. So we're doing a lot of communication and active listening training because of the fact that the technology communication, Slack communication, it's a reset of what is being heard and explained.
Mm.
So it's back to the foundation of wait, how are things being explained here? It's a meeting or is it communication? Is it Slack? Is it where are you all? And they're putting themselves into that mode of saying that's a meeting, right? So but the leaders are excited. They are because I think that they see it's a new beginning, in the last couple of years. I think the media and the environment has sold it in your environment of what entrepreneurship is, and people don't know the behaviors in it, and that can be dangerous because
Oh,
it
that's very
sounds
dangerous.
so sexy in
Yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah. Our country does such an amazing job of glamorizing entrepreneurship. And the successful entrepreneurs with whom we've worked, I have seen it is anything but glamorous. I mean, it's long hours, you're not paying yourself very well, you're delaying gratification, you're trying to improve in areas where you're generally not comfortable. It's very challenging. You're trying to manage constant scarce resources, whether it's money or time or people. It's a challenging dynamic.
The what I'm finding is what is the dopamine search? Like, is it the like button? Is it like if they don't feel it, does that mean it's not working? Like, you gotta don't look for the like buttons in the first 6 months or anything, right? So I actually, believe it or not, in the last year, I started teaching failure. And people are like, wait, what do you mean? I was like, no, 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 no. I'm hearing where you're not trying to do things at work or as a business owner or as a startup. I'm trying to hear how you're practicing failure offline. Another
Mm-hmm.
one of these offline
Mm-hmm.
things. So they're trying to understand what that means. I said, I'll give you my example to them. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. Very true story, by the way. Wake up at 5:30 in the morning, drive 45 minutes to go fish, hike for an hour to the watering hole, to fish for 2 hours to catch absolutely zero. And then I hike back 45 minutes and then drive whatever the time. So what is that? A whole half day of absolutely zero. Welcome to accomplishing nothing. So they're thinking, why would you do that? And I said, because I'm going back next week. That's my mission. My mission is I know that it can be now or later, but it's going to take a while. So how do you sit in learning the habits of entrepreneurship, of understanding it's not failure. If I drove and go, that was a complete failure, my attitude and behavior would be so different in the week, right? It is that didn't work.
Hmm.
So, but the good news is I practiced for work. So if you practice offline, you can really do it online. And I've been telling leaders, be careful of asking things from your team if they're not practicing offline,
Right.
because you want them to do live failure in front of you. What are they doing offline in their habits to get to this point? It's a
Hmm.
journey. So they have to challenge themselves a little bit of these activities. And some people need to connect the dots. They really do. And I think it's more of a mental belief that they're doing well if we tell them, you know, baseball players fail 70% of the time they're in the Hall of Fame, but they don't believe they're failing. They're believing they're doing great batting 300. Who's viewing what in success and failure?
Yep.
So I think it's the optics today. Unfortunately, we're fighting a lot of instant, my kids too, of, well, that was successful. I just saw it on a video. So that's where we are, where we have to kind of reset and reteach people how to play the long game, which people did successfully, but we're fighting a lot of noise, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's shift our focus for a minute. Part of your story that I find interesting is that you were part of a management buyout, essentially, at Sales Evolution. Uh, Tell us about the path that led you, A, to working at Sales Evolution, and then B, uh, toward your decision to buy out your mentor.
I'm as you can tell, I'm a seasoned professional, right, with a touch of gray. So it's not like I did it in my 20s, but I'm not Colonel Sanders did it in his 70s, right? But I knew in my heart and heart that it takes time for anybody to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be kind of a tech, it could be professional, it could be whatever it is, right? So mine was really just getting my bearings, just really getting the family. We were striving for having a second kid. You have a lot of nuances outside of influence. You really got to be careful where you're going into entrepreneurship and business. So the timing was good where I knew, and my background was really based on growth. That's all I did with startups and organizations. And I really enjoy teaching and training and teach at Temple and coach Little League. So it's an organic one of saying, I can see this industry really doing well. I just need to put my hands around it. So we bought it 2 months before COVID. So how about
Yes.
that for good entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
Put the
So,
stand instead. So Tony and I worked together 5 years prior. So I had a history of work being with the firm, knowing fully well where it was going, right? So getting to understand a lot of the organization's success. And took a step back financially, big time, right? But that's entrepreneurship could be different ways, buyouts, startups, whatever it is, franchise, it could be all different flavors. So having a note on the business, being really, working it with the owner rather than the bank,
Mhm.
right? Is could be a good thing. And then really understanding roles and responsibilities that have to be really good and learning from one another because it's going to be different styles with co-owners, yin and yang, different. It's a kind of work marriage, right? So we've learned from each other. We continue to learn from each other and really play off each other where our strengths are. But that background from the military really helped me to understand there's just different styles and behaviors in people, right? Rather than, so we work our way in and then really fighting through COVID because the learning departments got slashed everywhere. So we
Hmm.
just had to really hang on, just like most industries. Seeing really good growth. And then now we're seeing where people are like, you know what? I think we're going to do audio and videos. We have those. We've always had those. But the question is it delivered in the manner that our audience is looking? So we got to say, okay, we got to really continue, like most companies, refine our service and product to meet the demand. But what's interesting right now, really, really interesting, is we're seeing the environment of buyers change overall. And what that means is they want to be led. They want to be directed. They sometimes don't even know what they want. And so
Oh,
when
often.
you're in, so what happens is the traditional model of really kind of saying, hey, I'm going to search for you, and this is the blue I want and this big. That doesn't happen as much anymore because people know they want something, they're just too busy. And so finding the time, they're like, hey, if I meet with you, just really be efficient in my day, my week, and let me know. And then I will follow you and buy from you and just trusted partner. So it has become very consultative selling more these days of not hurting an organization as they power through. Could be the enemy, get people, human. So they're really realizing there's less risk when participating.
Hmm.
And there's a lot more pressure internally in all these organizations where they're trying to please everybody. And sometimes that's very hard to move forward. So if we capture them, leading them, telling them the segments, I'll give you an example is, Truist um, was a great example of really conversations about how they do well, how they do really well, meeting the demands of the market.
Hmm.
But one of the areas they said, hey, we really would love to understand the environment of a referral success. That's a culture change, not getting referrals. So it's regionally, two different regions. They knew that the culture can really be increased. They were doing well. So salespeople were all about that. They're like, that prevents me from hunting. I might as well go back to my sources. So how do you do circles of influence and others? So process improvement, they really bought into like, hey, tell us where to go. What else you got? So you can hopefully that helps of, the whole company of where we got from buying into today.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like there were a couple of inflection points in there. Um, One was the COVID inflection point, a negative inflection point. How'd you guys manage through that?
I think the having clients that loved what we do and we were doubling down and saving lives. We were doing CPR, saving clients.
Okay.
And we're like,
Yes.
we'll work
Yeah,
with
because
you.
your clients were in the same boat, essentially.
Everybody
You're saying,
was.
yep.
We called our former customers. How can we help you? We
Hmm.
called we really were kind of like trying to do the Red Cross
Hmm.
of the economy, right? And some of them was doubling down. People had the money, had COVID money to spend. So people were cautious to sell. And
Yeah,
then we did this whole thing specifically for the trades industry. The minute the April or May where trades companies could go inside houses.
oh, right.
We did a specific training for trades to double down. Everybody's a ton of money. And lo and behold, that was the truth. Look how much money was spent
Oh,
on
yeah, improving homes, right.
improving homes, dying to do the projects,
Yep.
things that were and how to price it. So we did really, we were working with that environment. So we learned to work with the environment to help us, but
Hmm.
also at the same time, we weren't as profitable as we should have been, but we were getting by.
Okay. Okay. So then there's a second inflection point, and it feels like maybe you're sitting around that inflection point now where you're saying, okay, the world has become a lot more digital. How do we package all of our expertise in a way where today's world wants to consume it.
I think what you learn is like, what are people listening to? And there's two worlds that we live in today, right? So what happens is in the pandemic,
Mhm.
right? People became professional learners. They became really, really good at learning on demand and fixing their own issues, building a
Mhm.
porch, fixing the plumbing. They started really, really doubling down on content. And then it became podcasts, and then became David Goggins, and then it became Joe Rogan, and it became everybody under the sun of listening.
Yep.
Walking the dog, on the pentathlon or whatever you want to call it, bike, right?
Yep.
All everybody's listening. So even in cars, so now it became a world of where do you put your info if everybody's learning? So what happens is you realize that people are like, no, no, I'll learn some things in the morning or when I walk my dog at night, but I can't do it during the day. So we're meeting that market now
Mm.
where that's that one world, and some people still meet.
Yep.
Companies still love the collaboration of exercises and group thinking. That's powerful, group
I
thinking.
agree.
So we're trying to still tell them to do that. The
Hmm.
individual learners, we can kind of put them in that box, but it's evolving. We're excited about it. We got AI role play coming up, and
Ooh, that's pretty exciting.
so I mean, if you think about it, we're going to be really, really more technology driven than anything for what's great is having AI with our content. People can kind of see the answers before they even needed coaching. So it's going to be great. It's good. So that's to meet the demand of the market, like any other organization is evolving, and hopefully we can do it quicker than our competition.
Yeah, I'm optimistic for you. I like some of the ideas you've shared with me offline, and I'm excited to have kind of a bystander's perspective on your journey into this modern. It's a quote unquote old trade, sales, but it's one that is a critical function, if not the most critical function for every successful business out there. So watching how you take this old style of doing things and marry it to the type of learning content delivery that the world demands today will be a pretty fascinating story, I think.
I'll give you an example of content, right? So the world believes they know everything, right? And you and I are hard believers, right? We have convictions. So we tell people, we're like, okay, if you're a hard believer of success, when you have a client or excuse me, a prospect that didn't say no, that didn't say yes, what happens to them? And so some people have so many different answers. Well, they get kicked back to marketing. I said, all right. So let me just ask you a question. How does your check-in call sound like? And then they have a white face. I
What
was like,
check-in call?
it's like, so we created curriculum. We are tweaking our curriculum every year of not teaching people never to check in. And it's never been taught. It's a profound area of business that most business owners do not understand is some of it is timing. Just because
Oh,
you met
a
with
lot of
people,
it is timing. You're absolutely right.
but none of it is taught what happens to them
No,
afterward.
it's not taught.
So
It's
that's where we can provide value with it's called keeping the love alive. And we called KLA training, which is how do you provide value to your prospect without checking in?
Alex, that's super interesting because I feel like that hasn't said yes, hasn't said no segment is the fattest segment of every pipeline CRM I've ever looked at.
And everybody goes, well, the CRM should fix that. And our email marketing, I was like, sure thing, no problem. Right. But
Yeah.
what's a human to human element? And I don't want to be an advocate for not advocating kind of sales as the ringleader of things. It's good leadership, right? But I always say, you know, is your competition leaving a voicemail?
Yeah, no, probably not, right? I
So
mean, I
and that was a rhetorical more than
yeah,
I meant
I
to
don't
is
think I get sales voicemails, honestly.
I love leaving voicemails because I'm okay they didn't pick up the phone.
Right.
But some will, somewhat. And now we do audio recordings in LinkedIn to messages.
Ah,
You got it. So how you use the gym, tactically high value activities is a lot of people will think, well, that's the way it works, but there's no output. It's like, well, you're stuck on the wrong machine.
yep,
So it's about modernizing the aspect of how people get success
yep.
and being very mission driven is a culture that needs to be driven by leaders, is not the salesperson. The person will follow the leader saying, yes, I'm going to be outcome. So teaching leaders to celebrate no's as much as yeses. And they're like, why? I said, because they got the truth. Would you rather get 20 ghosting? You'd rather have a healthy pipeline than a mystery pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of it is the unknown to a lot of people of how they were taught of how to view success. And it's not rocket science, I can tell you that. I mean, it's really not. So people, like I said, it's we're normal humans and we play golf and we think that's the way we play it. But if they're willing to learn to say, well, you know what happens in the PGA when you go from 20th to fifth place, how much money you can make, and it's only a three-stroke difference. That's companies. So those people that are very mission driven of process improvement will really resonate with we're not doing that. We could
Hmm.
really do that. That's not that hard. We can, so all of it is we're not doing a heavy lifting of redo your whole department, right? It's really more or less of and believe it or not, a lot of these entrepreneurs you work with, a lot of them are operators, IT, data, SaaS, operations. Their self-limited belief of them not wanting to be in sales
Hmm.
is we challenge them to say, you can't hire a salesperson unless you know what they're doing.
Hmm.
If not, they're going to tell you X, and you're going to be like, I don't know that one. Right. So I think it's, we've had some amazing Philadelphia and nationwide startups of people that weren't in sales, but they really understood the empowerment. And believe it or not, they're selling a vision internally to their company. That's the skill sets they're performing.
Oh,
So
yes,
selling,
100%. Yep.
so selling internally is almost as equal as selling externally. And so understanding the value, and I think no matter what, will always be regarded as used cars. So, there's nothing we can do about it. So it's the industry of how it's viewed.
Hmm. Totally agree. All right, so Alex, we're coming up on time. Um, two more questions for you. Number one, what would you say the biggest challenge is at the moment for sales evolution?
I think the biggest challenge is finding the right leaders that really believe in endurance of challenges to be successful.
Mm,
That's the challenge. Everybody's knocking on the door, but no understanding. Well, if sales goes up, operations goes up, right? So it's understanding the game they play is finding the people that have that appetite. That's probably the biggest challenge is we can't sell them on that, right? They have to come to us with already that kind of mindset and behavior. So I think it's really um, the industry of companies that want to play bigger ball. And I don't know if it's just a hangover still or just because of so much employees wanting to leave, the internal issues that they're gassed a little bit, which was more than the past 5 years than historically combined in the 20 years. So you're trying to see through their eyes, what do they want to do based on, are they still going through a lot of trauma
hmm.
from things? Does that help answer? Like, that's the biggest challenge for us is to see the people that are willing to continue to grow.
Yeah, we see it all the time. I mean, growth, we've talked about it. Growth is glamorized. Uh, the actual endurance sport beneath that growth is far from glamorous. It's arduous, it's repetitive, it's exhausting. So yeah, we're completely sympathetic on
Yeah,
that.
and just to share with you is, we're conscious that we can see even our own clients, if they need help, we have to refer them to business coach or
Hmm.
EOS implementers too.
Hmm.
It could be not related to us type of stuff. So we understand that that's a big structural issue too sometimes, where they're not really seeing it the way that we can,
Hmm.
where they're kind of, but we're graceful of not telling them what to do. We're just telling them, hey, would you be open to learn more about it, on that? So that can help because that means they're trying to get their alignment. Usually it's alignment issues over time, and that's kind of normal, I guess, in growth.
Makes sense. All right, Alex, one final question for you before we wrap up. How can our audience best help you? What's one thing our audience could do that'd be helpful to you and or sales evolution?
Well, as always, we can look at it internally to say, we'd love to work with people that hate their own success, right? But I think the challenge is to never discount success, and to always, I want the audience to realize that there is so much more opportunity out there relative to your competition. And it doesn't matter the industry, we've seen them all. And don't let internal factors or external factors to start creeping in for head trash and self-limiting beliefs of growth. And the hard part that we're seeing today is change. Is they don't want their team to feel stressed. Everybody has this warm, fuzzy feeling for teams, and I get it. And that's where we go. So I said that the challenge is they will rise with you if you sell them well the mission.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably the first stumbling block for a lot of companies is just what sort of mission do you want, right? Define the mission. That could be very challenging for companies.
So I leave you on this note is, there's people that's different regions for growth, and the exit is the last one.
Mm.
But what happens is when a company wants to exit and they have employees that have been there for 10 to 20 years, they better be careful of how they prep for exiting when there's knob and tube, right? So they need leadership training, they need executive training, they need everything, sales training, they need everything, because that's a different purpose. So all those business owners and entrepreneurs out there, don't let your company plateau. If not, they'll get used to the sofa, the water cooler. Keep them process improvement mindset. So when the time comes, they'll work with you to get there,
Hmm.
rather than having to say, shoot, I haven't asked them to do anything in 10 years or 15 years. That's the big challenge. So that's what the audience can say to help drive the economy. Let's do it all together.
Alex, that's fantastic. That's a wonderful concluding note. Uh, Thank you very much for being so generous with your time and appearing here on episode number 3 of Marion Street Capital's Beyond the Inflection Point podcast. We will see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean.